What you're seeing right now are conceptual consumer product designs conceived by TaBIS. They're not product announcements, they're not claims, they're design studies. They explore how the material logic used in infrastructure scale water treatment might appear at the surface level, in objects people recognize and understand. In this video, we're going to explore whether consumer-facing artifacts like these could improve the visibility of an infrastructure-oriented water treatment company, and whether that visibility might one day translate into strategic or economic value without changing the core mission. Now, let me step back for a moment. Look at this image. Clear water, a simple cup, a clean straw. Nothing looks wrong. If someone handed this to you, you wouldn't hesitate. And yet, every sip you take today likely contains microscopic plastic particles. You can't see them, you can't taste them, and most of the time, you don't even think about them. Not because you don't care, but because the system was not designed for you to see them. We experience water at the very end of a long chain, after it's been collected, treated, and delivered. Everything upstream stays invisible. And when problems stay invisible, we tend to look for solutions in the wrong places. You're watching TaBIS, a technology and business innovation studio. We study how systems emerge, scale, fail, and endure. So let me be very clear about this video. This isn't a product pitch. It's not an investment recommendation, and it's not a prediction. It's a thought experiment, a way of thinking through how infrastructure companies operate, how they're understood, and how visibility, or the lack of it, shapes everything around them. And PolyGone is a good case study to think with. PolyGone Systems is a Princeton-origin cleantech startup focused on infrastructure-scale microplastics removal, not consumer gadgets, not lifestyle products, not things you put on a shelf. Their work lives upstream, in wastewater treatment systems, rivers, and large water flows that most people never directly interact with. That positioning alone already puts them in a very different category from most companies people associate with water filtration. PolyGone is designed for systems, not for consumers. That sounds simple, but it has deep implications. Infrastructure companies operate on long timelines, pilot projects are regulatory environments, and slow, deliberate scaling. They don't win by being visible, they win by being reliable, which also means they often remain invisible, even when they're doing something important. The reason PolyGone exists at all is because most water infrastructure was never designed to deal with microplastics. These systems were built decades ago to solve very different problems. They remove solids, they remove biological contaminants, they manage flow and safety. But microplastics are new, and they fall through the cracks of legacy design assumptions. So the problem isn't negligence, it's historical mismatch. Once you see the mismatch, the next question is obvious. Why not just add filtration? And this is where reality hits. Large-scale filtration is expensive, energy-intensive, operationally fragile. The moment you add complexity at scale, you introduce failure modes. That's why many solutions look promising in labs but struggle in real infrastructure. PolyGone's approach is interesting because it doesn't fight the system aggressively. It's passive, biomimetic, and native to infrastructure. Instead of forcing water through high-energy barriers, it relies on structure, flow, and material intelligence, less brute force, more architectural thinking. That mindset matters. And the boundary is that PolyGone is not a consumer startup. It doesn't depend on daily user engagement. It doesn't rely on brand recognition. And it doesn't need people to emotionally connect with a product. Its value is created upstream, quietly, long before water reaches a cup or a bottle, which raises an interesting tension. When people encounter companies like this, a simple question is, should they move into consumer products? It sounds reasonable. Consumers are visible. Consumer products are tangible. consumer revenue feel faster? But this question often misses what infrastructure companies are actually good at, and it can easily become a distraction. A more useful question is this: can infrastructure become visible without becoming consumer? In other words, can people understand what a system does without turning it into a retail category or a lifestyle brand? That distinction is subtle, but important. That's where the earlier visuals fit in. They're not proposals, they're not products, they're not roadmaps, they're conceptual design explorations, tools for thinking, ways to ask, what would it look like if infrastructure logic were easier to see? You can think of these concepts as surface-level artifacts. They don't replace infrastructure. They don't compete with it. They simply express it in a form people intuitively understand, like a diagram you can hold rather than a system you never encounter. And this point is crucial. This is not about performance, not about efficiency numbers, not about filtration claims, not about health benefits. Those questions belong elsewhere. Here, they would only distract from the real idea. This is about visibility, about helping people understand where problems actually live and where solutions actually operate. Visibility doesn't solve infrastructure problems, but it shapes how they're perceived, funded, and supported over time. That kind of visibility can create value in quiet, indirect ways. Clearer narratives, better positioning, stronger long-term brand gravity, not overnight revenue, not mass adoption, but durable understanding among the people who matter. The constraint here is discipline, visibility without dilution, expression without distraction. The moment visibility starts pulling focus away from the system, it stops being helpful. This balance is hard, and that's why it's interesting, because some of the most important systems in our lives don't need to be louder. They just need to be seen. Infrastructure, but visible. Before we end, let me leave you with a question, not a conclusion, a question. If you are building an infrastructure company like PolyGone, how would you think about visibility? What deserves to stay invisible? Because it works best that way. And what might benefit from being seen? Not as a product, not as a promise, but as an idea people can understand. This video isn't an answer. It's a way of thinking. If this kind of thinking resonates with you, whether you're a founder, an investor, or an operator, I'd be curious how you see it. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to see more analysis like this, where we slow down and think carefully about technology, systems, and strategy, that's what TaBIS is here for. Thanks for spending the time.